Three, two, one. Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And I am so unbelievably excited today. I have one of my clients on the show, unbelievable, Phil McNamara. He is the founder and CEO of GetProven. And so awesome to have you on the show, Phil.
Hey, Michael, so great to be here, and I love your background. It really, it looks amazing. Where exactly are you?
I am at my club, so I have a like a club here in the city, so in San Francisco, imagine that like high-end business club that you belong to. So yeah, so I'm here. I'm actually in the sports bar that they convert into like workspace that you could use during the day. It's great. Um, but everybody when they get into SaaS and tech, they say to themselves, geez, I want to work with PE firms and VC firms, right? That's literally what everybody's like. I want to work with these companies. So Phil, if you could give the audience just the overview, the elevator pitch, first of all, of what GetProven is all about, and then we'll dive into your backstory. That'd be great.
Awesome. So the elevator pitch, if you were, let's say, a top VC in Silicon Valley, and you got into the elevator with me, and we're going up to the 15th floor. And, normally VCs don't like to talk to random startups because they get pitched all the time. But of course, being a startup, you have to pitch. I would say something like him. I would say something like, hey, we can make your VC firm more successful by giving your portfolio companies millions of dollars in deals and discounts that they couldn't normally get, and that'll extend their runways, and it'll make your investments more sustainable in the long term, because they're going to be working with the best professional services firms out there and the best SaaS vendors. So they don't need to waste time on trying to get the best deals, or waste time trying to figure out who is the best recruiter out there, because we all know that Michael Bertoni is the best recruiter in the world. And so, yeah, think of it like a private marketplace for the portfolio companies in a VC firm to get access to some very, very exclusive deals and discounts and perks to help them grow their business.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, you don't want the VCs firms to worry about, just get on the investment, but let's bring in all the partners, right? That can help that company succeed, right? This is needed. So let's get into your backstory, Phil, because what I always love to kind of get into is the backstory, is the superhero backstory that you have that got you to GetProven. So again, I love the name too, by the way. But tell the audience the backstory. So how did you come up with GetProven? Where did it come from? Like, how did you get there?
So lots and lots of years of failure, to be honest with you, Michael. Lots of mistakes and lots of errors and lots of shitty jobs. So I know 15, 20 years ago, I had an idea for an app that you could scan a barcode of a product at home, and you could, find the product in your local store, and that failed. And then I went from, I did another business that was taking the CEOs around the world to visit the world's best companies, and that was successful and then failed. But that was super interesting, because that taught me about Silicon Valley, and I went to Silicon Valley and I met with Apple, and I met with Microsoft, and I met with all these great companies. And I remember the lady from Apple telling me, you should buy Apple shares, and they were $40 a share. And I was like, that's so fucking expensive. No fucking, are you crazy? $40 a share? So this is before the iPhone, which is, it just goes to show. But and then I went, and then that business went down the tubes. I was driving my fancy BMW, had to sell it, had to go work for my brother's construction company. So I went from being this big shot CEO to being the guy with the stop go sign in the traffic. And that is a lesson in humility, to go from someone who you think you are to you just having to work for a shitty salary. But I always wanted to go to Silicon Valley, and I kind of joined a kind of an incubator in Ireland. And I said, look, I'm going to go to Silicon Valley. And so went there with a bunch of other Irish guys. And the thing that we discovered is when you're new to the Valley, or when you're new to any city and you're trying to start a company, you need all sorts of help to run your company. You need a bank. You need a law firm to do incorporation. You need an accountant to do your books. You need all these services before you can do anything. And this was even, 10 years ago when you couldn't like go to Clerky or go to Stripe and get everything set up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lesson for me was I signed up a law firm. Now they were just recommended to me, and I didn't even know kind of how much they charged, and they charged a shit ton of money.
Oh yeah.
And I had asked one of my lawyer a question. She left me a voicemail about something. I probably didn't listen to the voicemail, but a month later I got a itemized bill in the mail, and it was a $250 for leaving the voicemail.
Oh gosh.
And so I thought there's a business here to recommend service providers to startups. But I had, we kind of, I put together the idea. I pitched it to a bunch of people. Everyone said, no, it's not really a business for that. It's not really a venture backable business. And so I said, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. So I was a sales guy for another company for a number of years, and I'd got some good deals with that company, so I'd earned some good commissions, and so I used that commission money to bootstrap Proven, and then we started getting our first clients who were VCs.
Love it. I just want to tell the audience real quick how Phil and I actually met, right? Because this is a story in like startup lore, right? It's so amazing. And hopefully this, we won't mention her name, but hopefully she crushes it for you. So I was introduced to Phil like 3 months ago, right? A couple months ago. And he's like, I need help with generating leads. I need help with business development. And that obviously stuck in my head. And then I got introduced to, we'll call her A, or we won't mention her name, but I got introduced to her by my client. My client was like, this is a rock star, Mike. You need to talk to your clients about this person. And I just said, okay. And I just started doing it, right? And then pick up the story, Phil, because I got to tell you, man, when that sort of thing happens, you're like, and then it builds our relationship from there, and I'm giving you value. Talk about what's happening right now, how that all worked. Talk about your process, because Phil has this unbelievable process that I think every entrepreneur listening to this can learn from, of how he makes sure the person is a good person, right? You took her through this process. I'd love for you to tell the audience about this, Phil, because again, it's like you knew she was good, right? And a lot of times people don't have any idea. They're like, how did you even know she was good, right? So take it from there, Phil.
Yeah. So again, like over years, you learn stuff, you pick stuff up from other people, and it's certainly not all my ideas. So I've hired a lot of people online, and it's really hard to tell the kind of bullshitters from the really good people online. So if anyone's hiring anyone, I would suggest write a really good job description, but in that job description, put a couple of sneaky questions that if anyone is skimming, they'll miss. Ask them to do a video interview, which is just send like a Loom video for 2 or 3 minutes talking about themselves, because you'll learn so much about that person just from watching that video. How they speak, how they act, how they dress. Do they know how to use Loom? Do they know how to use Vidyard are they going to record on their phones and send you a huge file? All of those things tell a story. But we have kind of psychometric tests where we ask people different questions. We also send them kind of a test on general knowledge and common sense and smarts. And this person was really, really good on all those. But then we try to ask tough questions and ask really kind of meaningful questions as well. But I think what you've got to do is like, how do you get to the essence of the person? And a question for salespeople that I like to ask is like, how lucky are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And if they score anything below 7, it's like, no way, it's not going to work out. Because as a salesperson, you got to feel like you're lucky. You got to feel like the universe is going your way. It's going to make shit happen for you. And this person's either, I'm 10 plus, I'm 10 plus, like I am totally lucky. That's the perfect answer for a salesperson.
Yeah.
But no, there's a bunch of those kind of questions of, how do you work with a team? And you don't need team players in this, and this person, she hasn't gone to Harvard or hasn't gone to Yale. And I said, I don't give a shit about that. All I care about is can you do the work? Can you deliver? Can you work your butt off? And I think that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Startup mindset. I mean, we have a lot of words for it. I mean, but when you're talking, so when I got introduced to her, Phil, I said, she's got it. She's got it. Like, and it was like, so that it factor, we always try to package that up as best we can, but man, I'm really psyched that's working out. Let's hope it continues to work out. But let's dive into it, Phil. I want to get a little nerdy on your product because, again, Phil's company, GetProven, they work with VC firms, they work with PE firms, they help them get, the partners that are going to work with these companies. Let's dive in one level deeper. Explain the product, like explain what the product does and the value proposition, right, for your clients.
Sure. So if you think of it from the perspective of a VC firm, they have raised, millions or billions of dollars from limited partners. And they want to make sure that the money that they give to the companies, the portfolio companies, is used wisely. So the biggest issue is you've got a first-time founder. They may have gotten a check for $1 million, $500,000, even $10 million from a VC for the first time. They're like, oh shit, I have to spend this money and I have to do it as fast as possible. And the biggest problem we've seen is spending money on vendors that are just not a good fit. That could be for software that doesn't work. It could be for an accounting firm that screws up your books. It could be for a law firm that messes with your paperwork. Whatever it is, there's a lot of bad stories about there of companies misspending their funds. And so how it works in our platform, the VC will say to that person, hey, you've got your money, well done, congrats, you're on board. Now here's our platform. Here's all the vendors that we think are a good fit for you. They've been vetted, they're proven, they're high quality, and they're also going to give you a big discount to work with them. So it reduces that thinking time, the decision time the founder needs to look at, instead of saying, which vendor should I use? I just go, look, let's go with Michael's company. They're the best out there. Let's not fuck around and try and like interview 5 different recruiters. It just makes the process way easier, so they can focus on building their business, and instead of like trying to choose vendors. Same thing with software. So we have access to, we work with over 11,000, 12,000 different venture funded startups. We tend to focus on VC PE firms who are backing super high quality companies. So we don't offer deals and discounts to anyone. It's only venture backed companies. And so the VC firm pays us a monthly fee to access the network. We don't take any money from the vendors or any service providers who are trying to be on the platform. We say to you, hey, if you want to be on the platform, you have to prove to us that you're a good quality vendor. Have you worked with venture-backed companies before? Have you worked with VC firms before, PE firms? If so, you're more than welcome to join. And that's kind of how it works. So a private network, the best vendors, the best prices for the best companies.
I love it, Phil. What I always like to try to say, when you're explaining what you do, it makes complete sense, right? It's like you're like, oh, this makes complete sense. How do you get people to give a shit, right? And I love that you're swearing a little bit, because I normally swear, and like I don't swear a lot of times on these podcasts, but it's okay. Let's swear. Phil's swearing, I'm gonna swear. How do you get the VC and PE firm to care? That's the biggest challenge right now. You're a small company, right? It's like, what is your strategy with that, right? How do you get them to care, first of all? Like, what are you doing right now?
So with VC firms, VC firms have had this kind of idea of value creation teams for the last 3 or 4 years. There's been a trend in VC about how do we add more value than just giving a check and walking away. And so the value creation teams have been buying proven, because it shows them, hey, we've saved X millions of dollars for our portfolio companies in the last year, in the last month, in the last week. So they can see when companies are using them, they can see the money's being saved, and they can see the time savings. So that really helps them to understand, okay, I am doing a good job as part of the portfolio team. For the private equity firms, what we're doing is they're following the same path as VCs, but they're a couple of years behind. They're just getting this whole idea of value creation now. And so the biggest thing for a PE firm is, how do I reduce the cost in my portfolio company? And they may have a portfolio of 20 companies, of 50 companies, of 100 companies, but it's very hard for them to know who are all the vendors that are selling into these companies. There could be hundreds of vendors. And those vendors could be super happy not to share the pricing between all the portfolio companies because they want to keep the PE firm in the dark. They don't want to know that they're getting an 80% margin on one company and a 20% margin on the other company. And so one thing that we can do is we can help compare all the different vendors across all the portfolio. And that's a really powerful piece of tech that we have, which allows the portco manager to look for a vendor and see which vendor is offering a deal to all the different companies in the portfolio. So it brings a lot of transparency in that. And so the PEs need to reduce the costs across all the portfolio companies, increase margin. And so you tell them, look, if you use Proven, you're going to increase margin across your entire portfolio. They'll be like, well, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a company out here, Phil, that I don't know if you know. I'm connected with the CEO a little bit, Crossbeam.
Yeah.
So they're in South Jersey, literally. So, I met Bob Moore. Bob Moore was at SaaS Open, but yeah, I that hit my head. Like, Crossbeam is doing it in a big way, and they're funded and they're growing like a rocket ship. So I want to introduce you to him. But again, let's talk challenges. So obviously you're having challenges, right? There's challenges in any business. What are some of the biggest challenges, Phil, that you've overcome? Like, so you're dealing with challenges. We're always dealing with them, right? It's nuts, right? What are some of the biggest ones you face, and how are you overcoming them?
So look, there's tons. Sales and hiring salespeople was a challenge until I met you. So thanks, thanks very much. Look, it is going to be like, as a founder, the thing that you're strongest in is probably going to be your biggest Achilles heel. And for me, I've always enjoyed doing sales, but then I tend to, when I'm doing sales, I'm ignoring everything else in the business that needs to be done. So hiring is really important. I think that's a huge challenge. We're bootstrapped, we're profitable, but that's a challenge because as you grow, you need to hire more people. And then you're like, okay, well, that's going to cost X. So I'm going to have to bring in X more clients to keep the profitability up. So always trying to figure out, where are we with burn? Where are we with cash flow? That's always tough. But I've always said, look, I want to be in a position where we continue to be profitable. I don't want to be, have to go cap in hand to a VC and say, hey, can we give some money? Because you know what happens when that happens. But I think, yeah, talent is always a big issue. Like, I'd love to hire 5 more engineers tomorrow if I could find them. They're hard to find as a needle in a haystack. Yeah, but tons of challenge. Finding new customers. We're trying to sign up customers globally now. We've got customers all over the world, which is great. But then they're like, hey, can we get our site translated into Chinese or into Hindu? And I go, well, okay. How do we do that? Or how do we, make the site twice as fast in twice as many countries? So tons of engineering challenges, tons of sales challenges. But as a friend of mine said, it's not how do we fix it, it's who do we need to hire to fix this problem. It's always a who.
Yeah, I love it, Phil. I mean, it's so amazing how we rapidly build our relationship here. I mean, I'm excited about your journey. So last question. I love this question because advice. What piece of advice, like, so people listening to this right now, startups, I love the fact that Phil is bootstrapped. A lot of companies out there, there's a whole bootstrap movement right now happening. What are the two or three biggest pieces of advice that you would give other SaaS and tech founders, people thinking about doing it, listening to the show right now?
So just on bootstrapping, you know, I've talked to a ton of founders and a ton of VCs, and every time I mention that I'm bootstrapped, they say, awesome, that's well done, good for you. If I could do it again, I'd do it like that. And even VCs telling me, you know, keep going, be bootstrapped, don't take money. It can be really, really tough not to do it, not to take money. And I've been approached tons of times saying, hey, do you need money? I would strongly encourage you, if you can, if you can figure it out, stay bootstrapped. You know, you're gonna grow more slowly than anybody else, but we have competitors that have raised millions and are still, you know, they're not as, you know, they're doing different stuff now. When you take VC money, you're forced to kind of go the big path. That's one thing. And then, you know, hire really good people, but there's really good people all over the world. They're not necessarily in the US. They could be in Uruguay, they could be in Egypt, they could be in Warsaw. Like I just hired an amazing sales guy in Warsaw in Poland, and I met him a couple of weeks ago. He's going to do an amazing job. But thanks to you, Michael, our amazing SDR, she's based in Philly, so I think she'll be an amazing person. She'll turn out to be one of the best salespeople I've ever hired. But yeah, but you know, you've got to connect with people like you. You've got to meet people. You've got to do the calls. Sometimes, you know, you're like, oh man, another call, I can't do this. The more people you meet, the better off you are, the more connections you make.
Yeah.
So try and number one, if you can, bootstrap it if you can. If you can't, you know, you got to get money where you got to get it. But be careful about who you hire, and you don't always have to hire the most expensive people in the world.
Absolutely. So Phil, I'm looking forward, obviously, new client, looking forward to following your journey, looking forward to helping you out. So stay on the line for a second, we'll debrief, but it was awesome having you on the show.
Thanks a lot.